And I was not prepared for this, Lynn. And it's taken, yeah, it's taking a minute to adjust because probably my sister's told me at some point, and no matter what point in my life she told me, but I should never forgot that. Because really, that's when you get the males together to have a family meeting. Even though, no, my sister was not treated anything like the males. And that's not, she shouldn't have been. She was a baby girl. I mean, my mother did right, but my sister will never understand the way Jack was treated. And I know he's hard to deal with, but it's amazing he's even alive. There's certain instances of just complete insanity that, yeah, it'd been better to just beat him, just beat on him than the screaming about absolutely nothing. About Black Oak, Arkansas, like it was sacrificing children almost or something. Like he was, you know what I'm saying? It just made no sense. But yeah, this is where like I didn't know I'd forgotten. She had, it's quite embarrassing that, and it makes sense. Like, yes, certain biological conditions, like we're not allowed the stance that others have. Like when I said wrong century, I meant previous century. Yeah, that was very common and natural. Well, see, this thing about Generation X, well before the internet, not knowing this would ever be said. This is some of these are very much diary entries at this point, and they can't be limited to a device because how else would anyone access them? So, in just in case someone wants to know, yes, these are very much and rightfully so diary entries. That's why it's good to have a low following. That's why I can get a lot more on TikTok. Just sneezing. I'm telling anyone can. I'm just be on there. I didn't even try it Instagram because I only need my soul. And the reasons I keep going app to app to find my soul, like, where are you? I mean, and this is where like I don't doubt being blocked. And I use Missile Arson example. Regardless of how whatever, some of that just correlates too well. Brick stone in your window, like really? You ain't getting brick stone in your window, but you're special, you're a divine being, you're a living soul. Devil I imagine you ain't getting brick stone in your windows. Devil I imagine Hermes Thoth. Are you not getting brick stone in your window? Your banking accounts aren't seized up. Your social media channels aren't mimicked and seized up. Where some of that fiat currency is funneled elsewhere. I'm just saying there's some things about Melissa Arson, Waking Leela, that's like are just highly believable because that's the way. Because it's like the way the digits are treated. Like that's the thing. If you do not interfere with the mountain colony, why would the mountain colony interfere with you? And I don't know what you can't see. I understand just look at the stance of Greenland. As soon as minerals are found, they're just slobbering on themselves, and everything's justified. Well, there's minerals, and we got to have them. That's the Anunnaki reptilian story that come from outside the second dome and the mountain ring into their Anunnaki land military outpost. They do not. They break through the dome, but they don't come accidentally flying in or intensely flying in from non-existent outer space and gravity. Okay, non-existent gravity. But my sister, her first period, she was on the floor, like crying. Do you understand? My sister, and this is probably, I guess, the advantage Russell Means didn't have. He didn't have a sister that went through this. That's why and this thing to get to my sister. Understand? Because no one watches my videos. There's no reason to think. Because that's why I had to get off Facebook. Because you understand, I had to get off Facebook. They were suggesting younger and younger friends. It was creepy. Meaning, just as anyone, like say a boss or something, like got hold of like just my friends list, it'd be suspicious. Like, why did this guy get such young girls? As suggested friends. I have no idea. Not looking up porn or anything. So why am my friend suggesting getting younger and younger? And most of them like a state away or two. But yes, and so if my sister can't have the no steel, born in a previous, she didn't have that. She didn't feel like she was born in should have been born in the previous century. And, her vulnerability, like she wants to say, well, I don't want to be like a bear living on the side of a mountain. Like, well, that makes sense. I'm saying, meaning, why should she care about anything here? If you incarnate in a meat suit and I don't know what you're just living, all of a sudden you start bleeding and you're cramping and you're on the floor being tortured. And then some indigenous person wants to call that purification without a woman next to him. That's the thing about the Russell Mean video. It's like, if I'd seen that first, or anyone that the only video they ever seen of Russell Means was him saying, and he goes on and on about it in video after video. Go to Russell Means channel. That a woman's torturing bleeding, artificially induced by the artificial moon that wasn't always here, that just arrived one day, that causes that, is purification. And he's Mr. Matriarchy. And he's the spokesman for the earth, which I get that he didn't understand that we're not a self-contained spinning globe. I get that. But that doesn't validate you as spokesman of the earth, especially after seeing what we've seen in Vow of Silence. Whether you were drunk or intoxicated slightly in some of those scenes or not, that staging you did in front of the FBI or whatever, like, why did you do it there, accusing someone else of killing Annie Mae Aquash? That can't be overlooked. What are you doing touching Pocahontas? That was one of the first things I experienced on TikTok, was the disgust with the Pocahontas, mimicking by others on Halloween, but just the disgust with the artificialness and the lie of the story. So when at the other end, when I'm seeing Russell Means like explain the reason he was in that movie, there is no explanation. Why would you touch a movie that's a complete lie about women? Yet you want to talk about great-grandmother, the earth, and matriarchy. Well, you can, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily the spokesman. And I just got this. This is not to, it's not to get in good grace with anyone or even women. That's pretty obvious. I guess somebody got a filter, man. Because like me being redhead, I have that sense of earth. Like the sun, the summation of ours. Well, it wants to kill us mutants. Redheads are considered mutants. Like, why would I think this place gives a rat's ass about me? It don't want me to walk out into the sun. If they're not large trees protecting me, which we let the demons cut down. Okay? It's pretty simple. Like, why would you think a place is home that you can't even walk outside without being fried to death, literally? If you ain't redheaded, you don't understand. Yeah? I got to explain. I got to apologize for being pale. Redneck is a term for the most disposable slaves ever being burned and getting the Caribbeans. It's the origin of it isn't racist. The origin of the term redneck isn't some racist in the South of America. The origin of the term is those disposable slaves, the honkies that get their necks burned in the Caribbean sun. Yeah, that's the origin of the term redneck. Brown people, and we're all brown. That's a humanity's brown. Russell Means. I get you didn't know at the time, but like, man, I just see too many videos where leaning. Dennis Bakes leaned into it. It's different, a little bit different, because Russell Means had true concern about nature, but Dennis Bakes, I don't know. He just leaned on that word like awfully convincing, like it's almost MK Ultra CIA ran. And the way they did Annie Mae Aquash, whether the gun was, I don't know if the gun was in the mouth or the back of the head. I don't know if it was at all, but it fits, huh? It fits now, doesn't it? I mean, watch Vow of Silence. There's nothing impressive about any of them, especially Leonard Purification, where they just label security. It's like, it's exactly his behavior, just security. Just thug-ass security. I ain't sorry. But yeah, that's it. But if your sister, your sister didn't begin her menstruation with lying on the floor crying out of pain, then you might get over romantic with with concepts like that's only a woman goes through purification because of her monthly induced torture. That there's no excuse for it. A little more death would be appropriate. And the thing is, like, I'll trade the rest of my time here for that. My sister is actually in a state of emergency, which she's been understanding more than me about. I've been trying no, I'm not like my brother. I'm not Jason and all the patients have. I'm not faking it. I don't want people to see me. That's enough reason to go to the woods. If my leg's going to do nothing but draw up most of any given hour, then I don't want people to watch it, whether they think I'm acting or not. Why would I want to? Hey, you want to look at some pain? I don't want anyone to see that. I don't like it. I'm always working on it. Stretch. I don't want to do that because that looks like I'm looking for sympathy. I'm not. I'm trying. That's my job until it's. What else? Other job do you have? It's to correct. You got an ailment that's interfering with your production. You got to address that. But there's no getting around that. My sister is in a state of emergency over fiat fictional currency. All of a sudden, the health providers, it's hard enough to find a doctor you like, and that's what she told me. I didn't know this was going on. So my sister's been writhing in pain because cysts had developed, and she's scheduled at a surgery here pretty soon. And right now, it can't go through because of insurance companies squabbling over fiction. And I got to listen to some indigenous person because we can't step on his toes, which now passed on, and why I'm talking to him. Deal with this, Russell Means, because he erroneously called a women's monthly torture purification. We get a little bit too romantic, indigenous people, with what they're talking about. And this ain't nothing new, but have we been duped? Is the indigenous culture being duped to calling the Anunnaki reptilians custodians manipulation of the environment and the resets the Earth's response? I mean, is that what's happening? I mean, it's possible. The indigenous people claim, of course, and that's where it comes from the globe. And that globe, it's so contained, it doesn't apply to the entire flat universe. So it is possible. But is that the reality? I mean, the elements may be sacred, or I'm saying water might not be conscious. Water might not be conscious at all. I know it imprints memories and stuff, but there's a possibility because it's sounding like indigenous cultures have been duped into serving this decay of carbon without any resistance and keep respecting carbon decaying erroneous cycles. You know, they the sacred hoop. Whatever. I know y'all didn't know, but now you do. Huh? It sounds like it's a possibility, at least to an extent, or the elements still might be conscious, but they're still, they're being manipulated. And too often, indigenous cultures are interpreting demonic and not reptilian and custodian manipulation and humanity recepts as the earth responding to the benevolent human, or to the human that's in line with the sacred elements. So you understand? If the human is in line with the sacred elements, if they're conscious, then if they're being duped, if they're being like reset by the demons, that's a problem. So the thing is, this is so diabolical, most cannot conceive of it. But to keep telling you do not get to tell your trail of seer stories without mentioning you carried slaves, because that's what I'm saying. That clouds issue. That's what the problem we're having is. I got duped on TikTok and just blatant victim. It's like the brown victimization. Well, if you ain't pale, you're a victim, because that's basically what it boils down to over here in Ameriblah. If you ain't pale, you're a victim, regardless. Yet the NAACP is somehow formed excluding the native. How could former slaves form an organization that doesn't even include the natives on the very land they're on? That's impossible. Absolutely impossible. You getting it now? But that's what I'm getting at. If your grandparents, your ancestors took slaves on the Trail of Tears, that has to be mentioned in your story, or you cannot tell it. And that is a warning. And gamble that's not from the divine feminine herself.